Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Crystal and this is Books Forever, where we do not sit on the floor and talk about books because I am in a different location. So my daughter has taken over our bed, so I'm not here for tonight. Well, I decided to do these recent reads, slash book reviews a little bit differently, and instead of doing monthly ones, I would just do every 10 books or every 10 books, 5 or 10 books that I get completed in a row. So I'm a little behind, and so here we are. So since I am doing this a little bit differently, I apologize. I will be looking at my screen here for my notes. So if you see me looking off to the side, that is why. To start, I will be talking about Neon Gods, which is part of the Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert. I rated this a 4-star read, and this is a Hades and Persephone retelling, which is a very spicy slash like contemporary vibes as well, like very urban fantasy. And I reread this one because I wanted to, I do own a physical copy of this one of Neon Gods, and I reread that one so I could refresh my memory to read the second one, which is Electric Idol. And this one follows a marriage of convenience, forced proximity, and it also has the one bed trope. I thought this one was okay. I rated it a 3-star. It wasn't as good as the first book, and I didn't really feel or believe the characters' connection or their romance with each other. It just felt very insta lust with nothing else to like support or sustain the romance aspect. I did enjoy the plus size heroine, the representation for Psyche, as well as the LGBTQ representation that is really present in this series. As far as I know, like all of the main characters have been bisexual, and there has been like just automatically assumed like there's no shame in that as well, and that whole underlying feel of the book. So this follows Eros, and he is an assassin for his mother Aphrodite. I had to say this mother-daughter relationship really gives off the vibes of Mother Dearest. Aphrodite is known to become jealous of others, especially women, and also she gets annoyed for some sort of minor inconvenience, big or small. She uses Eros to like take them out, and definitely not taking them out to dinner. She tells Eros that the next person that she wants him to take out is Psyche. So in order to protect her, they end up in a marriage of convenience, and they have to fake being in love and pretend that the marriage is real. For me, the story just ended lackluster, and it didn't really live up to the premise, and I really didn't care that much about Eros or Psyche the whole book. The issue with his mother was really weird. I guess, like, why couldn't he just tell her no? I guess for me, I guess even assassins don't like assassins or are afraid of their mothers. Next, I read, alright, so the next 2 books I saw all over BookTube being so hyped up, and I just jumped on the train for that. This is the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. I read Flawless. This one I rated a 4-star. This is a contemporary small town sports romance where the sport is following bull riding. And this has the tropes: forced proximity, one bed, great banter, and caretaking. I rated this one a 4-star. It was a fun small town romance. So you follow Rhett, who is a bull rider, and he gets in trouble with his sponsor. So he starts losing being dropped by them. The reason why I thought was kind of weird, so it's over not liking milk, but to each their own. So to save his career, Summer is sent to kind of babysit him. so he doesn't end up putting like his foot in his mouth when speaking to people in the public or, you know, to sponsors. She ends up going to have to live with him at the ranch, and she basically has to watch his every move until his last tournament. And till his last tournament for him, for him to retire. I thought the banter was really, really great, and I laughed out loud quite a few times. However, I did enjoy the second half more than I enjoyed the first one, and this wasn't my favorite romance, but I did really, really like it and enjoyed it. I just don't know if it's something that I would reread again. So, the next one that I read in that series was Heartless. I rated this one a 5-star. I really loved it so much more than the first one. I laughed even more. This one follows, it's a nanny romance with an age gap. It has the grumpy sunshine trope, and it follows, of course, with the nanny trope, it follows Kate is a single dad. It is very cute and funny. Daddy Cade definitely has a mouth on him, and I really enjoyed it. I can see why it was hyped. I can see why it was hyped and why people like it and love it. I personally loved the strong heroine, and had a really great witty banter, and the family dynamic. You got to see more of that you didn't get to see as much in the first one. And I laughed out even more, like I said before. So yeah, definitely really loved it. The next one I read, let me see here. So Flawless and Heartless, I read that on Kindle Unlimited. So the next two I checked out from the library. This first one, Zodiac Academy: The Awakening, I checked out from the library physically. This one is a urban fantasy paranormal bully romance. I've seen this being, talked about on BookTube. It was interesting. It was really rough start to the series, and just because there is so much writing and editing issues. This follows two 16-year-old orphan twins, Tori and Darcy. They've been in and out of foster homes. They're currently living on their own. They're struggling to make ends meet. And they find out that they are Fae when Professor Orion comes and whisks them away to the Zodiac Academy. Here they find out that they are the long-lost daughters of the murdered king and queen, who were believed to have been, and they themselves were believed to have been killed. This Fae world that they enter is ruled by zodiac signs and elemental powers, like fire, earth, air, and water. At the same time, it's also ruled by supernatural class at the same time. So everyone is either like a vampire, werewolf, siren, etc. And here, power is king, much like how that kind of dynamic is in the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black. Power is king, and like the weak the weak are left behind. So since the king and queen died, there are 4 houses that have been ruling, and there are 4 male heirs. There is Max, Seth, Caleb, and Darius, and they are the bullies as far in this, this bully romance. And they are like the powerhouses here at the school. They kind of rule the school, so to speak. In order for the Vega twins to get their inheritance or take back the throne, as they have no interest in taking back the throne, and no one cares to listen to them when they say that. They're still just seen as a threat for obvious reasons. So in order to get their inheritance and or take the throne, they have to pass what is called the Reckoning and graduate the Zodiac Academy. This book was kind of left you being the reader or myself just feeling frustrated because the twins were just left to struggle in their ignorance and their naivete about this world. They've discovered they're powerful, but then as they're powerful because they have all 4 elemental powers, which is like unheard of. People usually only have one. But everyone just expects them to know everything about this world and the rules of the school. No one's really there to guide them. They do get assigned like a professor or like as a guidance person, but they're not very helpful. So I feel like after reading this first one, I felt like it has the potential to better build upon the magic. With that said, at the same time, it kind of felt like it had way too much on the magic system with the supernatural and the elemental powers. It felt like it took a little bit to figure out what was going on, so I just put it as to me just needing to catch up, but at the same time that can be, it seemed a little busy as well. So I did struggle in the first half of this book differentiating between the different twins' points of views because they both kind of seemed like the same person with the same personality. It wasn't until later in the book that they say you kind of can tell they have a little bit different personalities. So I can see how people have made the points before that there was no differences in their characters, and I can understand that point. I did wish that the romance was more prevalent or the tension was felt more earlier on. I am definitely intrigued by Professor Orion, that's for sure. The bully romance aspect is not my favorite trope because that just kind of, I feel like, reinstates that he's mean to you because you like you kind of thing. So I don't know, it's not my favorite trope. However, with that said, I believe and I hope that there's a reason for doing so, and that the authors are going to build to like a reveal or like a character arc in the next books, because I definitely don't like any of those, the 4 male heirs right now. And I hope she does, because apparently this is a 9-book series, and that's a lot of books in the series. So yeah, we'll see what goes on with that one. The second one that I read, and this one it did improve much more. I gave this one a 5-star. And it definitely made me really intrigued and a little bit definitely wanting to continue on to at least do the 3rd one. I did like the twins' pranks against the male heirs on this one, and their revenge from what the 4 of them did to the twins from the first book. And I loved getting to see more Professor Orion. He seemed like a very interesting and like mysterious character. And I did really like seeing more different points of views in this one, specifically getting to see the heirs' characters, and more of Professor Orion. The next one I read was The Highest Bidder. I read this as an e-arc from the author, Sarah Kate. I rated this one a 4-star. This is a billionaire. Okay, so this is the 5th, I want to say, it's just Players Club series. This follows the Ronan, who has played a part, and you have seen his character kind of in the background in the previous books. This is a age gap billionaire. It has forced proximity, 1 bed. It follows a sex club, salacious players. It is BDSM. Ronan is the pleasure dom, and he's follows the cinnamon roll hero, and those are all the tropes. I do have a trigger warnings here that I noted, but you might want to check additionally as well. There is loss of a loved one, loss of a child, and grief. There is another trope in here as well that I feel like that gives away the plot as well. So gosh, I don't know. It's just Sarah Kate has done so well with the series, and I just, gosh darn it, why can't I have my notes here? Why can't I live in this world and have a sexy billionaire dom, Cinedom whisk me away to Paris? I mean, this is really awesome. So it was so great to be back in this world, and it was so fun to get to see Paris and them traveling to there. That was kind of really fun. It was really interesting to see like a pleasure dom. I haven't really seen that in like in books displayed as commonly. And I think that this would be a really great first book for someone that's wanting to explore BDSM and romance. I really liked Ronan. He was really swoony and sweet, and I like to see that we got to see a peek into his friendship with Eden. And she even has a scene in SPC in Salacious Players Club where she's there to help Ronan and Daisy, which was a really good time. But it was actually really surprising because there's like a really deep emotional aspect to that scene as well. This book was so well written, as I expect with Sarah Kate. There are a couple of notes of this into why it wasn't a 5 stars for me. And I love the first 75% of this book. However, like the third act conflict, it seemed like multiple, kind of left me disappointed. So without providing any spoilers, first off, it had one of my least favorite tropes. The initial fight regarding the established conflict of her mom being Ronan's ex. It was never really resolved or really kind of discussed between Ronan and Daisy. The focus was left on the other conflict that was brought up, but that conflict wasn't like brushed over, and with that aforementioned, like not so favorite trope. It just felt unnecessary, that trope at the end, and it didn't feel like something like the characters, especially the heroine, would be ready for. It just seemed like, I don't know, it was just disappointing. And it's really kind of feel like it, and it felt like it conflicted with the whole reason that Ronan, the tough love reason that Ronan broke up with Daisy in the third act conflict. So that's why it was like a 4-star to me versus a 5-star. However, with that said, it was still a great time. And I will always continue to read whatever Sarah Kate writes. And I'm really looking forward to seeing and reading Eden's book in the next part of the series. And I did also pre-order this book, and I got a physical copy. I ordered it signed from the author's website, so I'm really excited to own a copy of this book. Next, I read an e-arc from the Book Sirens app. This one is called The Quiet Stillness of Empty Houses by L.V. Russell. I rated this a 3-star. This is a gothic romance / like gothic horror supernatural. It's also historical. It's set into like the 1800s. So this is very dark gothic novel. It has a little bit of some Jane Eyre vibes. And this follows Theodora Corvus. And she takes the job as a governess to a young Adeline Thorne. So first off the bat, I love a governess trope. So that's really what really drew me in and intrigued me to reading this, because it just made me think that this would definitely be like a Jane Eyre. Theodora leaves behind her grandmother and their crumbling, decaying childhood home. She travels to Broken Oak Manor, and it is a house filled with secrets, much like its housekeeper and its lord, Cassius Thorne. She finds herself drawn to Cassius and the strange happenings that occur at night within this manor, especially this mysterious person that is wandering the house at night, leading to the attic. Like, I know, it's definitely Jane Eyre vibes, right? I loved the spooky atmosphere that the author evoked with the descriptive imagery and the elements used throughout the book. I liked the promise of vibes of a romance or romantic element similar to, that Jane Eyre. element. However, I was left disappointed by the ending. It felt predictable and it's unsatisfying. This also did not feel like it qualified as a romance, which felt misleading, especially, you know, with this reveal at the end of this book. There is a love story developed. It just felt out of place and forced. I didn't really feel the connection between the characters, so the love story to me wasn't believable. It was a very slow build, and very Jane Austen, but then it just like flipped a switch, and then all of a sudden they just loved each other. That felt very out of place. I feel as though if the romantic element, this surprises me, but if I feel like if the romantic element was taken out, then it might have been better just as a gothic horror novel. Which is really strange to say coming from a primarily romance reader. So, there you have it. But yeah. So that is it. My next two. So my next one I read Gentle Rogue. This was a 5-star. So, love this. This is a historical romance, historical pirate romance. This has forced proximity, found family, disguise. There is a bathing scene, kidnapping, and surprise baby. I read this as part of a reading along that I am doing with April from Happily Ever April. We are reading one book a month out of this series. There's a live show towards the end of the month to discuss this book. So this one was so much fun. This was a reread for me. I had read this years ago. Back in high school, actually. There is so much hijinks, shenanigans, and it was just really great banter galore. And there was also, as I mentioned, kidnapping. In this third book of this series, which is called the Mallory Anderson series, you follow the retired gentleman. He's a gentleman pirate, James Mallory, who was the uncle of the heroine in the first novel. And it also follows Georgiana Anderson. She goes by Georgie. So this is the first introduction to the Anderson family in this book. At the beginning of this book, we pick up from where we left off in the second novel. Though if you haven't really read the previous books, I think you can get away with just reading this one. However, I would personally recommend, and just because it's just my character flaw, I have to read books in order. I recommend you read it in order just because you get a lot of the family dynamic context that way. Right, so this follows Georgie and her family friend Mac, and her family owns a shipping company, but they end up having to get a job on James's ship because they lost their money. It was lost or stolen on their way to the hotel from the dock. So she has disguised herself as a boy before for them to travel safely, and so she decides during her travels she would disguise herself as a boy, and then she runs into James in a tavern, who instantly recognizes her from the first one as being a woman dressed up as a boy. So when she gets a job on the James's ship, he instantly recognizes her again, but he decides to say nothing and just to let her get the job as a cabin boy and just kind of keep up the ruse just for entertainment's sake as well, which created some great shenanigans and hijinks with this book, and it was really, really fun. I love the banter and the found family dynamic in this book. There was a great swoon factor as well. It was easy to see why this was one of Johanna Lindsay's well-loved books. Very iconic. The only thing I can say that I didn't like was the ignorance factor with the heroine when she didn't recognize desire and she confused it with nauseousness. Even as so far that she was sniffing James's cologne, thinking that it was the cologne making her feel that way. So I just kind of rolled my eyes at that part. And at the same time, I can understand that that was just it's a product of its time. But that was really the only part that I just did not like on the book, which is a very small, minor detail. Okay. So yes, I still think it was a great read, and I still love it. As I said, I do think this would be a great introduction to like a reader wanting to delve into vintage historical romance. So maybe you've been reading more modern, like Sarah McLean and Tessa Dare. I think this would be a good example of trying vintage historical romance with this book. Lastly, I read on Kindle Unlimited, I believe, or I think I got this book for free actually on one of the ebook sales when they were free on like BookBub, I believe. This one is called The Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells. I rated this one a 3-star. This is my first shifter romance, and it was interesting, but I don't think I want to continue on. This follows Una, who's 27, and she gets into her heat happens while she is serving dinner in a mess hall, and she's known as like a lone female. Her mate ends up being the alpha / leader of the pack, and she gets humiliated when he says he doesn't recognize their bond at all and believes that she's like lying. So he humiliates her and like makes her leave the hall, basically puts her out in the trash, kind of a thing. So I really liked the parts I liked about this book. I did like the heroine. She, even though the others perceived her as weak and mainly be just because of her crippled leg, which didn't make much sense. And however, I just really didn't like Killian. He seemed very beat-headed, not emotionally depth there at all. It did have, although he does do some groveling in the end, it just still wasn't as redeeming as it should have been. Yeah, and the other thing is he only did it because the bond kind of finally kicked in for him a little bit, and that was the only reason why he was like groveling to make up for it. Reveal as to why the bond kicked in so late wasn't really sweet, but I just didn't feel like it was congruent to the first half of the book. It just felt like night and day. And overall, this book just didn't feel romantic. And it wasn't even really good spice smut level either, and the whole wolf aspect of it was kind of really strange. The fact making a nest and everything like that, it always pulled me out. I don't know, I just felt that weird, and maybe that just means that these are just not, these shifter romances may not be for me, although this is my first one, so we'll see. If you have a recommendation for a shifter romance, please let me know down in the comments if there is one that is maybe a better option than this one. Alright, so that is it. That is all the books that I most recent read. I do have more to come because I'm a little behind. Comment down below if there's any of these that intrigue you, or if you have any recommendations for me as well, especially for any shifter romances. And if you don't feel like commenting, go ahead and comment a stack of books emoji. We'll see you in my next one. Bye.